I sit and I look at what is coming for the Democrat Party in the midterms. And I think to myself, what can they possibly be thinking May 23rd ending Title 42? Because you know that the entire summer is then going to be spent with all of the footage of the border disaster. And I understand that maybe they're hoping they're going to get some sort of rallying cry that comes out of the Supreme Court, depending on what the Supreme Court does with abortion, right?
I think that's going to be overstated, meaning even if they do something big, it goes back to the states. I don't think that's going to be enough of an outcry.
I'm tending to think too, Buck, because also the data, when you look at it, 95% of abortions happen before the first 15 weeks. So if they uphold the Mississippi law, it only would impact 5% of abortions that are going on, right? In terms of when they're occurring, 95% of them happen before week 15. To your point, one possibility here is they just throw everything back to the states, which I think is probably ultimately what's going to end up happening with Roe v. Wade. But I tend to think that that is not going to be as big of an issue as many people are anticipating. And also, Buck, that it could be snowed under by all of the attention that I do think it'll be impossible to ignore going on at the border. Because we saw at Del Rio, Texas, that one shot of underneath the bridge of the 15,000 Haitians. That's the only time the border has really been a story during Joe Biden's term. That's going to be everywhere, all over the border.
I also think, Clay, when you brought this up last week about how they're ending Title 42 but extending the mask mandate.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah, that makes no sense. And it's also, I think, a really clear reminder that we have been through this period where it is a Democrat ideology. It's the authoritarian impulse of the Democrat Party on display. They'll tell you can't go to church. This is what you can buy. This is where you can go. Mask up your kid. Mask up your toddler. They'll tell you the most minute detail. And if you have a problem with any of this, you're reckless. You're not obeying the law. I mean, every time they read the stupid federal policy says you have to mask up between bites on a plane. And it really is mask up between bites, folks, because they specify that while not actively eating or drinking, it's a mask up between bites. So they will micromanage every aspect of Americans' lives under the notion of protecting us from COVID, because it's the law. Meanwhile, at the border, come in illegally, lie to Border Patrol, don't show up for your hearing, use fake documents, work illegally, don't file taxes. And it's, hey, we're a nation of illegal immigrants, apparently. People are seeing this and they're saying this is a big problem. They can see there's something wrong here.
And it's even a big problem for Democrats. Independents and Republicans, this is not a surprise that people would look at what Joe Biden's doing at the border and say this is a disaster. But even Democrats are looking at the border. Buck, look at the numbers, and I think it's probably even going to accelerate down in South Texas. The biggest cultural swing that has occurred in terms of the electorate, if you look at the numbers, is South Texas. This is an area that went for overwhelmingly Hillary Clinton in 2016, that flipped to a large extent to Donald Trump in 2020, and probably in the midterms is going to continue that cycle even more so. These are predominantly people, obviously, who have friends and family on both sides of the border, and they don't support the lawlessness that is occurring down on the border, Hispanic Americans. And so this is going to continue to be, I think, a bigger and a bigger issue. And even with all the disasters that Biden has going on, this is one that I believe is going to linger. And to your point, Buck, it's what we were talked about. You're maintaining mask mandates on airplanes while changing Title 42. But also, we've seen the president and the vice president obsessed with Ukrainian border sovereignty. They traveled to Europe. They got within a few miles of the border of Ukraine. They have obsessively talked about these armies coming across into Ukraine. Well, effectively, what we're going to have on the southern border is an army of illegal immigration coming right across our border and overwhelming the people who are designed to do the jobs there. And we're not even going to get a scintilla of the same level of attention from the president or the vice president.